Hello, thank you for checking out A1 Math, and today's topic is multiplying polynomial expressions by monomials. Today's essential question is, how can you multiply polynomials by monomials? Here's the steps for multiplying monomials with monomials. So here we're just going to multiply one monomial versus a single monomial, and you'll see later that that's important for doing auto multiplication. Your first step is to multiply the coefficient. That's the number in front of the variable. Your second step is to add the exponents that go with the same variable. So what you'll do is if you have x to the second and you multiply against x to the third, then you will add those two exponents together and you'll get x to the fifth. Any variables that do not have an exponent, go ahead and put 1 for that, and I'm going to show you an example. Okay, so in number 1 here, they want us to find the product. They want us to multiply. Okay, the first thing I did is step 1, where I multiplied the coefficients, the number in front of the variable. So I have 3 times 2, which is 6. Okay, the next step I did is took the variables that are the same and add the exponents. So here I have x to the 1. It wasn't a 1 there, but if there's no exponent, you can put a 1. Have x to the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3, so I have x to the 3. Okay, and that's the answer for number 1. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Okay, here we have monomial times another monomial with more exponents, but the rules remain the same. Okay, step 1, I take the two coefficients and multiply them against each other. 8 times 4 is 32. Next, I'm going to add uh, the exponents on each variable. So over here on the left, my first monomial, I have x to the 1, but there's no x over here. So I'm just going to bring down the x to the 1. The y cubed, I can see I have a y to the 4th, so I'm going to add those two together and I'll get 7. And then there's no z over here in the first term, so I'm just going to bring down my y squared. So there's my x to the 1, my y to the 7, and my z squared. And that's it. Okay. In this example, what we want to do is we're multiplying the monomial times a binomial, or maybe even a trinomial or polynomial. So, but the rules remain the same. But what you want to do is you're going to take the monomial and multiply it times everything else over here. So I'm going to take the x to the 4th and multiply it times x cubed. Then I'm going to take the x to the 4th and multiply it times 2x squared. All right, let's take a look. So now I have x cubed, and I'll multiply it times x to the 4th. And remember, when we multiply, we want to add the exponents. Okay, so 4 plus 3 will be 7. And the coefficient of 1 is in front of the x. 1 times 1 is 1. Next, I'm going to have my 2x squared multiplied times the x to the 4th. Again, you have a coefficient of 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. That's the first step. Next thing I'm going to do is take my x to the 4th, multiply times x squared. That's going to give me x to the 6th. And that's it. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Okay, this is a big polynomial, but you're going to keep your steps the same. You're going to take this x squared and multiply times each term. Remember, that's distributive property. So let's take a look. All right, my first one, I did my coefficient of 1 times 1, which got me 1. And then I add my exponents. 2 plus 4 is 6. Next, I did my coefficient of 1 times 3, which got me 3. And then I add my exponents. 2 plus 3 is 5. All right, again, my coefficient of 1 times 2, which gives me 2. And then I take my exponents and add them together. 2 plus 2 is 4. All right. Now, take my coefficient of 1 times 11, which would be 11, and then I add my exponents. There's 2 here, understood 1 here, so I have 3. And last, I have 4 times x squared, which will get me 4x squared. Okay. Now, just to recap here, we're multiplying polynomials um, by monomials. Okay. Multiplying polynomials. A simple question is, how can you multiply polynomials by monomials? And hopefully you learned something today. Thank you for checking out A1 Math.